Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our slightly rescheduled COVID briefing. I'd like to start, as usual, by passing it over to Dr. Fitzgerald.
Thanks, Minister. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We'll start with an update. Since the media advisory yesterday, we have no new cases in the province. The total number in our province is 268. By region, we have 247 cases in Eastern Health, 11 in Central Health, 4 in Western Health, and 6 in Labrador-Grenfell Health. 263 people have recovered, and in total we have tested 28,884 people. We are well into the summer season and continue to do exceptionally well in keeping the number of new cases of COVID-19 in our province low. I am beyond grateful for the vigilance you have each continued to show in keeping each other safe from this virus. We know that life as we know it will not resume until there is a vaccine or effective treatment available for COVID-19, but with our collaborative efforts and adherence to public health measures in place, slowly but surely, we are regaining some of the normalcy we have lost over the last 6 months. Today, I would like to announce another step towards that normalcy, a special measures order related to organized social gatherings such as faith gatherings, recreational activities, weddings, funerals, theatre performances, festivals, and concerts. Effective August 24th, 2020, gatherings organized by a recognized business or organization may be held indoors at 50% of the venue's capacity up to a maximum of 100 people, and outdoors as well to a maximum of 100 people. Gatherings not organized by a recognized business or organization, such as a backyard family event, still have a maximum of 50 people as long as physical distancing is maintained with others outside of your bubble. Organizers of gatherings are required to keep a record of all persons in attendance for 2 weeks following the event, should it be required for contact tracing purposes. For more information related to indoor and outdoor gatherings, please visit gov.nl.ca/COVID-19 for more information, and this will be available later on today. When planning or attending a gathering, please continue to be mindful of people, space, time, and place. Simply put, the more people you interact with, the greater the risk of spread. The space should be large enough to allow physical distancing. The risk of infection of COVID-19 increases as people spend longer amounts of time together, and spending time together indoors is more risky than spending it outdoors. The same prevention measures that have become second nature to us all continue to apply when attending a gathering as well. So stay home if you feel unwell, cover your coughs and sneezes, practice good hand hygiene and physical distancing. Yesterday, I was pleased to participate in the public release of the English School District's Back to School Plan, A Safe Return to School. This plan outlines the measures put in place for a safe reopening of school in September. Reopening schools is an important step in living with COVID-19 and is in the best interest of our province's children and families. Public health and education officials will continue to work collaboratively to ensure the health and safety of students and staff. We know that to keep our schools safe, we will need to keep our communities safe. Recent evidence indicates that wearing a non-medical mask in communities can help to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Trying to return to a level of normalcy is a balance of risk and benefit. The introduction of a mandatory non-medical mask order at this time has been done to protect our communities and our vulnerable populations and schools as we move about more, have more daily interactions, and slowly increase gathering size. For a more detailed list of public spaces where a mask will be required and exceptions to this special measures order, please visit gov.nl.ca/COVID-19. While there are some exceptions to this order, the medical evidence to date indicates that there are a few conditions that are negatively impacted by wearing a non-medical mask. That being said, we will not be requiring the disclosure of supporting documentation for a mask exemption due to privacy reasons. As there are some people who will not be able to safely wear a mask for health or other reasons, let us refrain from judgment and instead show compassion and understanding, as it is impossible to know the personal circumstances of those we encounter. We must also be respectful to staff in retail stores and other businesses who might be enforcing the mask protocol. It is important to remember these protocols are in place for our protection, and these individuals are doing their best to keep us all safe. Let us respond with the kindness and courtesy they most certainly deserve. Public Health will be monitoring the indicators for COVID-19 in our province very closely as our children and essential school staff return to schools. Should we see any concerns, we will not hesitate to respond quickly with measures equal to the concern. As a recap for those who may have just joined us, we have no new cases since yesterday's media advisory, and the total number of cases in the province is 268. We have made significant progress in our efforts to contain COVID-19 in our province, which has allowed us to resume many of our daily routines and activities. Our ability to safely reopen schools and increase the size of organized gatherings is a true testament to our diligence and cooperation. We need to continue on this path to keep our community safe and cocoon our vulnerable populations and schools. I know we're all tired, and we wish this could be over. But I have to ask you all to hold fast for a little while longer. It's going to take all of us to keep COVID-19 under control, and I have seen what we can accomplish when we all work toward a common goal. We can do this, Newfoundland and Labrador, and we will do it together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fitzgerald. I'd like to welcome my friend and colleague, Minister Warr from the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development, and he's got some comments he'd like to make.
Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to join Dr. Fitzgerald and Minister Haggie today for the weekly briefing. On July 6, we provided the Newfoundland and Labrador K-12 reentry plan, which outlined overarching guidance and 3 scenarios for the upcoming school year, depending on the status of COVID-19 in our province. Excuse me. Yesterday, the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District released its operational plan, A Safe Return to School. This plan provides detailed information on every aspect of the K-12 education system and what students, parents, and teachers can expect in September. Throughout the past several months, planning at all levels of the education system has focused on safety and has been informed and guided by Public Health and the Chief Medical Officer of Health. Excuse me. We have been working hand in glove to ensure the return to school is safe, that students can once again enjoy and benefit from normalcy and structure that school provides, the relationships with friends and teachers, and the face-to-face instruction that the school setting allows. The public health guidance for K-12 schools was also made available yesterday, which outlines in detail the advice and recommendations of our public health officials for schools and student transportation. I encourage families and our older students to read the guide and also read the district's plan, A Safe Return to School. It is important to have the latest information directly from the official channels, and I am certain this will answer many questions that parents and students may have. Both are detailed and, as mentioned, cover all aspects of the education system. They are available online at www.gov.nl.ca/NLSafeSchools or on the COVID-19 website at www.gov.nl.ca/COVID-19. There are also other resources available, such as a guide for parents and a Get the Facts handout. And I just actually brought those sheets for me today, so people could get a good glimpse of what they are. Our schools will be ready to safely welcome students back to the classroom on September 9th. To that end, as you know, teachers will be returning to school on September 2nd to prepare for the arrival of students. The earlier reopening will provide teachers, principals, and staff additional time to receive orientation on health and safety-related procedures and protocols for the operation of their schools and to prepare for the arrival of students. Professional learning will also be provided for teachers. We have confidence in the comprehensive planning and the measures being taken to ensure our schools are a safe place for students, teachers, and staff. Parents can also be confident in the planning and the measures that will be in place for a successful return to school. Case management guidelines are also in place in the event of a suspected or confirmed case of COVID-19 in schools, which are provided in detail in the public health guidance for K-12 schools. Providing a source of normalcy is part of learning to live with COVID-19, and plans are in place to manage this new normal in our schools. We also know that in our province we have a very low prevalence and no community transmission at this time. A return to school is a positive step for students, allowing them to connect with friends and teachers and continue their learning in a safe environment. We are hearing some, most notably by the NLTA, why do schools seem to be different from other public places for physical distancing measures? Dr. Fitzgerald, of course, is the expert on such matters, and there have been many discussions amongst us all, the department, our public health officials, the school districts, and the NLTA. I want to be very clear again that safety is the primary consideration in the planning and measures that are being put in place. Contrary to what has been stated by the NLTA, our schools are not like Walmart or a Costco. Thousands of people may go through a store every day. They are uncontrolled environments. Our schools are controlled spaces. Students will be in their own cohorts. Those outside the school community will not be able to enter the school, and if there's a case of COVID-19 due to the controlled environment and cohorting, contact tracing can be done effectively and efficiently. Such comments only serve to raise fear and increase anxiety, which is unfortunate at a time when there are feelings of uncertainty due to the pandemic. As Dr. Fitzgerald has said so many times, we must balance the risk of infection and transmission with the harms of school closure, which, based on current evidence, can negatively impact students' physical, developmental, and mental health and learning. Many measures will be in place, such as cohorting, increased cleaning and sanitation, the use of personal protective equipment, arranging desks and tables so students are not facing each other, and many other practices. Physical distance is one of a series of measures. By implementing a combination of measures, the risk of COVID-19 is substantially reduced. There is no system that is perfect, but we have to look at the harms of children not being in school, and right now, not being in school is the greater harm. We all have a role to play to ensuring our students can remain in school by continuing to practice prevention measures and following the advice of public health. Because of our collective action so far, we are in an enviable position to have low prevalence and no community transmission. By continuing on this path, we will help keep the prevalence and community transmission low, which in turn will help keep our schools open. As Minister Haggie put it very well in a recent briefing, a safe school is a result of a conscientious community. If there is one thing that we've all come to recognize over the past 6 months, there is nothing easy about this pandemic, and it has impacted almost every aspect of our day-to-day lives. It's tough for parents, families, and it's tough for our educators. For all of us to get our heads wrapped around how school is going to look this year, we understand many are feeling anxious and uncertain. There are a couple of key areas I'd like to touch on along those times before I wrap up. Teachers have identified the need for an enhanced professional development in the area of social emotional learning and trauma-informed practice. As a means to reduce the mental health impacts from last spring when in-class instruction was halted, social emotional learning is a core element of the safe return to school plan. It is expected that children and adults may have experienced increased stress and anxiety related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Professional learning for teachers will take place, specifically in the areas of health and safety, social emotional learning, and trauma-enforced practice. Busing. The priority must be the safety of students, teachers, and staff, and we must follow the guidance and recommendations of public health. For the safety and benefit of all, if your child normally takes the bus, we are asking parents to consider taking them directly to school if their personal situation allows for it. This will help alleviate some of the inconvenience for those students and families who are more reliant on school busing. We understand that this will be a challenge for some families. The district will be contacting parents to determine their ability to provide their own transportation, and we are working on plans for buses to make double runs where possible to accommodate more students. Some are wondering why we can't bring on more buses, but it is not that simple. It was identified in the spring that the manufacturing and delivery of school buses has been impacted across the country by the pandemic. The department provided an exemption just a while ago for the school district to be able to use 13-year-old buses. The usual cutoff for the age of a bus is 12 years. Student safety is paramount, and while we understand it will be an inconvenience for some, we are asking parents to consider driving their children if possible, and the district is working on other measures, as mentioned, to accommodate more students where possible. I know that some families are already discussing carpooling options and appreciate the necessity of taking this step to ensure safety for all. We know that many schools do not have mechanical ventilation systems. The public health guidance speaks to moving activities outdoors where possible, for example, lunch and physical activity, to consider moving classrooms outside when space and weather permit, and to open windows when possible and if weather permits. We understand that as we get into October, those opportunities can be limited. There is a natural ventilation protocol in place which schools now use, and there will certainly be an increased emphasis on that this year. This may not be the answer that some want to hear, but again, we are in an enviable position with no community transmission and very low prevalence, and it is important that our schools are open and students return to class. The situation with COVID-19 worldwide is complicated, and there is no doubt this will result in us having to regularly reevaluate what we are doing. If our current situation changes, we are prepared to be flexible and to make adjustments quickly to follow and implement any new guidance from public health. We all have a role to play in ensuring our students can remain in school by continuing to practice prevention measures and following the advice of public health. This will keep the prevalence and community transmission low, which will in turn keep our schools, will allow our schools to stay open. A safe school is a result, again, of a conscientious community. In closing, I encourage everyone to read the school district's plan, A Safe Return to School, as well as other resources that are online, such as the public health guidance for K-12 schools, a guide for parents, and a Get the Facts sheet. There is also information on the NLESD website. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Warr. Well, here we are, day 164. We have 2 active cases and no new cases. And that's a testament, as Dr. Fitzgerald says, to everyone's hard work. But I would also argue it's a testament to the fact that our public health system and our healthcare system have risen to the challenge. They've served us well, and they've served well under conditions of significant uncertainty. If you go back and look at the beginning of the pandemic, you will see the environment has changed significantly in terms of what we know and how advice has adapted to meet those circumstances. That was the background to our Life with COVID-19 plan, and it has changed. Level 2 now looks different than Level 2 did when it was introduced some weeks ago. And I would like to thank everybody involved for that. But again, there is a degree of uncertainty. And as we look now to other elements of normalcy, and Dr. Fitzgerald has used that term to describe the safe return to school plan, we need to look at what else we can do to be a conscientious community to support the safety of our schools. And I think that was one of the driving features behind the idea of masking in public areas where social distancing, physical distancing is not possible. And I would commend that to all of you. It is now the subject of a special measures order. The mask guidelines are up on the website to help deal with questions that you may have. One that's already come to my attention is the issue of people in isolation and whether or not the option of non-medical masking allows them to do anything differently with their isolation. The short answer is no, it does not. The two are separate issues, and isolation means just that. The conditions of that do vary depending on whether one is an essential worker and therefore only required to isolate when not working, or a rotational worker where your isolation is a little less stringent in the sense that one can leave your property, go for walks and drives by yourself for physical and mental health reasons. Rotational workers, again, have asked me questions about the effect of their isolation on their other household members, their spouses and their children. The bottom line is that as long as no one has any symptoms, the spouse is free to go to work, the children are free to attend daycare, and the children will be expected to attend school when that reopens. It is not a new change that I'm announcing. This has been in place since the beginning of the pandemic. Unfortunately, I know from experiences in my own communities that some spouses of rotational workers have faced significant challenges in doing their daily activities, simply going shopping. And again, I would refer to Dr. Fitzgerald's comments about kindness and compassion. These people are doing nothing wrong. They're looking after their families to the best of their ability in very difficult and uncertain times. And I think they deserve to be commended for that and not ostracized or criticized. So I would ask for a little compassion on their behalf. The mask requirements, as I say, are up on the web. The new orders related to gatherings will be posted later on today, all being well. They're effective date is next Monday. Again, Dr. Fitzgerald has that checklist that I would encourage you all to think about when you try and assess you and your family's risk of any specific activity. So people, space, time and place. For those situations where you can't physically distance, if you're out and about, if you're on the move, do it with a mask. And with that, I'll hand this back to Kathy now for any questions from the media. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. For the benefit of our speakers, we have 6 reporters registered for today's call. Each reporter will have the opportunity to ask 2 questions and 1 follow-up. We suggest you not ask rumor-based questions. The purpose of these briefings is to address COVID-19 issues. All other government-related issues should be directed to the appropriate department or agency for response. Reporters will ask questions in the order they registered for today's call. Our first questions are from Peter Cowan of CBC News. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Fitzgerald, you said that mandatory masks have limited efficacy when the prevalence of the virus is low. Considering the fact that it has been months since we've seen the last case of community transmission, what benefit do we get by forcing everyone to wear masks?
So at this point, we're looking at, returning to school. We're looking at people moving about more. We're looking at people having more interactions with others. So at this point, we feel in advance of a potential second wave, it would be good to introduce masks now. This will give people time to get used to wearing them, and hopefully will reduce the spread so that we don't get a second wave. I mean, that's what we want ultimately. So we're putting these measures in place. We found from a lot of our measures that the earlier that we have them in place, the more likely they are to be of benefit. So that's why we made the decision at this time.
You mentioned that people who aren't able to wear a mask for a medical reason aren't going to have to produce any sort of proof. But who's going to be policing these rules? Is it up to businesses to stop people who are coming in and aren't wearing a mask, for example?
So I think it's, at this point, what we would like is for people, to be aware of the importance of wearing a mask. There are few conditions that really are negatively impacted by the use of a non-medical mask. There has been some research done on N95 masks, but that's not what we're asking people to wear. So these are non-medical masks. And so I think we have to be respectful, and for privacy reasons, we aren't going to ask people to disclose personal or medical information in public. And I think, businesses can be encouraged to educate and provide information to customers regarding wearing masks in their facilities. But, our first line of response to that is not going to be severe enforcement.
We've seen elsewhere where mandatory masks have been brought in, there are some people who have issues with wearing them that aren't medical. They just either have moral objections or they've said, you can't make me wear a mask. So if there's not going to be any requirement for people to prove that they actually have a medical condition, what's stopping people who just decide masks aren't for me, I'm not going to wear one?
So I would hope, and I think that this is true, that most people want to do what's right and responsible. So I don't anticipate we'll see that problem. I think most people understand the importance of it. I think most people understand why we're doing it at this time. And I think that most people will be compliant with it. We have seen wonderful compliance and understanding of why the rules are in place up to this point, and I don't think masks will be any different. So I have great confidence in the people of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Thank you.
Our next questions are from Patrick Butler of Radio Canada. Please go ahead.
Hello. The first thing I want to ask, I want to go back to the limits on the new limits for gatherings. Dr. Fitzgerald, you said that a gathering with up to 100 people would have to be organized by a recognized organization. If I heard you correctly, can you just explain what that means exactly versus a private gathering that would have to still follow the old rules?
Right. So our purpose with this is to increase gatherings that there will be oversight, that there will be somebody who is responsible for ensuring that the numbers is consistent and within the guidelines, and who will be able to keep track of who is there and that sort of thing. So it's more about just ensuring that we have a more controlled situation. And that can be a little bit more difficult in a private party. So we just want to make sure that right now that, as we slowly increase gathering size, that we will first start with a more controlled environment with someone who is responsible for how that gathering is run.
My second question is related to busing for Minister Warr. Just coming back to what you were saying, you're saying that you're making lots of efforts to increase the capacity. Yesterday, the school board said that there's going to be 6,000 kids who wouldn't be able to ride the bus. That's about 1 in every 8 kids who normally get the bus in Newfoundland and Labrador. You've got 3 weeks till school starts. What's the goal between now and then in terms of increasing capacity in the school bus system? I mean, how many kids do you think will still not be able to ride the bus when school opens?
Yes, thank you, Patrick. Certainly our goal is to get back to where we were prior to the pandemic. And, we will utilize every available possibility with regards to busing that we can. I think you heard Director Tony Stack mention this in his remarks yesterday and again this morning. We will reach out to contractors, throughout the province And, depending on the specifications and the implications with regards to their own contracts and having to have buses, parked and ready to go in case of breakdown. If there's other buses throughout the province, we'll do everything that we can to utilize those buses as well. We realize, it's a serious matter that we take very seriously, and the busing of students, we want to make sure that we do it in the safest way possible, and that's the reason for it going from a 72 passenger bus to a 46 passenger to ensure that all students and certainly the driver are in a safe environment. Having said that, again, we'll continue to monitor it. The district are on it, and like I said, we will support the district in any resources that they need.
And that's an excellent segue to my next question, which is about budgets for school districts. Yesterday, we learned that there's not going to be a change in class sizes. There won't be any full-time custodians added to the rosters at schools. Our school district budget's going to go up in the next little while in order to be able to have more staff on in schools for both teaching and for cleaning purposes.
Certainly, at this particular point in time, based on the guidance and advice of public health and certainly the Chief Medical Officer for Health, additional resources, that we've identified so far, we certainly, the district has gone out and had a job fair just a little while ago to hire extra custodial people with regards to the cleaning and sanitization of schools, and we will certainly help the district out in those particular resources. We're prepared to be flexible and to make adjustments as quickly as possible to follow public health guidelines.
Thank you.
Our next questions are from Kellyanne Roberts of NTV News. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Fitzgerald, I'm just wanting to follow on your Callan's question there in terms of enforcement and fines regarding masks. You note that you're not looking for severe enforcement on this, but in the Special Measures Act, it says that failure to comply with this order may result in an application to the Supreme Court. So I guess to clear up, are there any fines that could happen from not wearing a mask?
So technically, yes, there are fines that can happen, and tickets can be issued if you're not following those rules. But certainly, as with everything that we've had throughout this pandemic, our first response is to try to educate and to have people understand why we're putting these measures in place, and then to comply with those measures. So that's the same approach that we're taking with regard to masks.
Thank you for the clarification while seated in classrooms. Reading the text, it says, I guess with the caveat that 2 meters of space can be maintained. So does that mean if a classroom can't accommodate a distancing capability, will masks be required in some classrooms?
That would be in a post-secondary classroom? Then yes.
Okay, and I'm wondering how is public health or any government department going to follow up on that to, I guess, make sure it is enforced in the schools themselves?
So certainly there will be follow-up as the year goes on to ensure that there is compliance with this. And the schools themselves are quite motivated to ensure that there is compliance with these measures. I mean, none of the schools want to have an outbreak. That would not be an easy thing for them to have to work through. So they're very motivated to ensure that that these measures will be followed.
Thanks a lot. And just one more question for Minister Warr on the bus issue. I know we're hearing it's pretty short notice to let families know they might not have a spot on the bus. So we're just kind of wondering when you became aware of this issue with spacing on the buses and why it takes so long to advise people.
Certainly, we were made aware of this just a while ago. with regards to, we're anticipating that we may have a cut in the busing services or the seats available on buses. I will say that, we ordered, the district went out and ordered through the procurement process, I think maybe 39 new buses in the fall of 2019. As I previously mentioned, our issue right now is supply and demand. And those issues are prevalent throughout the country, and certainly in all, in all of North America. We're hearing these stories out of the U.S. as well. So buses are ordered. We, like I said, we put the exemption in for the district to use 13-year-old buses for this year until we see where we're to. Having said that, we will do everything that we can to mitigate the amount of people that will be negatively affected by this seating capacity.
Our next question is from David Marr of the Telegram. Please go ahead.
Sorry, David, I don't speak Morse code.
Our next questions are from David Marr of the Telegram. Please go ahead.
Oh, am I audible? Good?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Minister Warr, why are class sizes the same heading into September as they were when the schools closed down in March?
Why are class sizes, I'm sorry?
Why are class sizes the same? Why has there been no adjustment? Why has there been no additional teachers brought in?
Well, I mean, with regards to class sizes, when you look at jurisdictions across Canada, certainly, when we look at the class caps, I think for kindergarten, it's 20, grades 1 to 3 is 25, 4 to 6, 28, 7 to 9, 31. When you look at class caps, I mean, it's important to note that, when we look at last year in grade 4, for instance, only 19 out of 226 classes were at the cap. In grade 7, only 8 classes out of 228 throughout the province were at the cap. In grade 9 last year, only 8 out of 218 classes were at the cap. We are certainly bringing in new resources this year with regards to the implementation of Phase 3 of the Education Action Plan. There's 54 new reading specialists coming on board. There's 100 teaching and learning assistants in the K-6 program. There's 13 learning resource teachers, and there's 4 English as a second language teachers being, they'll all come in as part of Phase 3. And in 3 years, that's 350 additional resources that we have put into schools. And, I think it's important to note that investment by this government.
And fair enough, but how many more teachers will be brought in for the fall?
The teachers I just noted will be teachers that will be brought into the fall, and we will certainly assess the situation as we move forward. And if we need extra resources, I know that we're looking at different avenues of being able to use our substitute teachers. Our substitute teachers right now. So discussions are ongoing, and we'll come up with that. We'll come up with that plan fairly soon.
Thank you very much. There have on busing once again. There have been concerns expressed by the companies about having to absorb the cost. When it comes to putting up plexiglass, when it comes to the increased sanitization, will there be additional compensation provided to the busing companies, or will they be expected to absorb those costs?
Well, I mean, I think if you look at businesses across this island, I think everybody had to absorb some cost in ensuring that facilities within their places of business were cleaned on a continual basis. I mean, you look at shopping carts in some of these businesses, I mean, are washed down or sprayed down continuously. I mean, it's a cost of doing business, and certainly we're prepared, and as is the district, to continue to work with the busing contractors And certainly if there's concerns, I'm sure we'll hear them and we will deal with them accordingly.
Thank you.
Before we conclude today's briefing, we're going to do another round of questions. So one question each per reporter, starting with Peter Cowan of CBC News. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Fitzgerald, you've talked about mask fatigue before. How concerned are you about, now that they're going to be mandatory, the fact that, if things go well, we may be months and months without any community cases of transmission, and people will simply get tired of wearing them if they feel like there isn't an actual benefit?
That's a fair comment, Peter, and that is one that we have to consider. But we'll assess that situation as we move through the fall. And I hope, though, as I've said before, that the people in Newfoundland and Labrador have been very compliant and have followed public health measures as we've asked them to. And I hope that, and I think they will continue to do the same.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Patrick Butler of Radio Canada. Please go ahead.
Is there any update on the border, the Canada bubble, and Dr. Haggie, could you maybe talk to us? The last time that you met with your counterparts in Atlantic Canada, was this something that you guys discussed? Where are you at with this?
It's still in limbo. There's been no decision made. We have discussed it both at the health ministers' meetings. Those decisions are partly outside that table and would rely on some input from the Council of the Federation, or in the case of Atlantic Canada, the Council of Atlantic Premiers. So there's been no change. There's no proposal to change at the moment.
Next, we'll hear from Kellyanne Roberts of NTV News. Please go ahead.
Minister Warr, when it comes to the back-to-school plan, it was released or delayed to be released this week. Obviously, the issues of class sizes, busing, these are being flagged across the jurisdiction, really. How much of this could have been avoided if the plan was released earlier this year?
I didn't get that question, Kellyanne. The speaker was sort of broken up. Can you repeat that again, please?
Yeah. With the plan that was delayed and released this week, obviously many issues noted with it, busing being a primary one, physical distancing and class sizes. How much of these could have been mitigated and avoided had the plan been released earlier this summer for teachers to work through?
I don't know. I mean, Kellyanne, we were very, we certainly looked at the plan and re-looked at the plan, and obviously, we appreciated the support that we received from the Chief Medical Officer for Health and her officials at Public Health. There was a lot of people around the table, that participated. When you look at, Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of School Councils, the NLTA, the district, the department, so certainly Health and Community Services. There was a lot of people involved in helping to implement the plan that we have. We feel it's a good plan, and we feel it's a safe plan, which is of the utmost importance. And we're just looking forward to getting children back in school on a timely manner.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Brian Warr of VOCM News. Please go ahead.
Dr. Fitzgerald, some corner stores, maybe other facilities, do have policies in place whereby people who have a face covering, some other coverings, but certainly a face covering, are not permitted inside the store. Where would such a policy stand? Does this provincial order overpower that, or are they still permitted to refuse entry in those circumstances?
So that's out of my scope as to what the legal requirements or anything would be. Certainly we've mandated masks in public spaces, so that is a provincial order at this point, but I would have to defer to legal advice to answer that question.
Thanks.
Next, we have Holly McKenzie-Suter of the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm wondering, I know it might be more the school district's area of expertise, but about the decision to kind of have limited online support for people who choose to homeschool this year, and if that's something that might be reconsidered if a lot of people end up wanting to go that route?
I'm not sure of the numbers. We've had some interest in homeschooling, parents homeschooling their children, and certainly, we would, help out in any way they need to register through the district in order to receive, the curriculum and we would hope that if if a student is being homeschooled and all of a sudden, halfway through the year, the parent decides that this may be a little bit more than what they anticipated. I mean, the student is certainly welcome to come back to school. However, we'd certainly like for parents to take a really good look at this prior to registering for homeschooling, because really, we'd like for them to take it on a yearly basis. With regards to virtual learning, virtual learning will happen in phase 2 and phase 3. But in our scenario 2 is scenario 3, but in scenario 1, our schools are open, ready, and willing to accept children, and that's where I think they want to be, and that's where we like to have them.
And our final question today is from David Marr of the Telegram. Please go ahead.
Thank you once again. Dr. Haggie, given we're seeing, masks being made mandatory on August 24th, we're going to see the other measures on larger group gatherings also come into effect on August 24th. Does that mean that we're effectively into alert level 1 once August 24th hits?
The decision about alert level 1 rests with the Chief Medical Officer of Health, and where that label fits is her decision. Quite frankly, as I've said, alert level 2 has changed considerably over the period it has existed. I think alert level 1 is predicated on things outside our control that have not yet happened. For example, the existence of a reasonable treatment with some prospect of success, and maybe even the advent of a vaccine. Those are not things that are likely to happen in the short term, and I think under best of circumstances, it will be at least another year before either of those options exist.
Thank you, Minister. And do you have any closing remarks?
No, not really. Thanks everyone for coming, and thank Minister Warr for taking questions. And who knows what tomorrow will bring.
Thank you very much. Please join us again on Wednesday, August the 26th, for our next briefing at 2 p.m., 1:30 in most of Labrador. Have a great evening, everyone.